what you need to know about America's Pluto return. Okay. And for those of you who know me and known me for a while, I briefly talked about this a while ago, and then I have had such absolute resistance to looking at, dealing with, talking about this subject. And I think I want to preface this by saying this is a pivotal time in history, as we've already been aware. And if you know me, you know I love talking about the opportunities that are in things and talking about what's possible and what we're creating. And this is not one of those that is easy to do in that way. I really don't like talking, and this is one of the things I dislike about predictive astrology is that, you know, people have predicted bad things. But as I've been sitting with this one and watching some of the key activation dates for the America's Pluto return, I feel like it's time to talk about it. And so we're going to start by saying America's Pluto return is in the 9th house. At least in the chart I use. I have an astrology teacher who's been doing this for 55 plus years. I am going to respect the knowledge that I was brought into rather than what is happening now. In the early 2000s, a chart came into being that put Pluto in the 2nd house. It was the Sagittarius rising chart for the United States. And so everyone's predicting like it's going to be money stuff and shortages on things. And that does tie in to a certain degree because we have Uranus going through Taurus. Our money systems in general, because of coming into Age of Aquarius, are changing. Okay. The day of money as this physical, tangible thing is changing. And we're going to see that massively over the next 5 years. But when it comes to this Pluto return being in the 9th house, it is the house of foreign enemies, products that come from far away. It is also our Supreme Courts, our court systems, and the institutes of higher learning, as well as belief systems. So the very first thing is, just to get it out of the bat, is, I thought I wasn't recording for a second. That was going to be messy. Okay, so the very first thing is almost all of the activation dates for the Pluto return have involved conflict with Russia. And more, we are seeing our own government and other allies of ours investing heavily in fighter jets and our own United States budget was $24 billion more for our defense budget. I expect fully that a open conflict with Russia, because what's happening right now in the chart is Neptune, the planet of deception and confusion and all of the things, is squaring off to our Mars, the United States Mars in the 1st house, which is to say we are already in conflict and the people are not seeing it as clearly. I mean, the droplets are there, but pretty much, I mean, think about it as a population. As a global population, we've kind of been through it. Do we want to talk about 2 or more of the main powers in the world having open conflict? Can we handle that? Can our nervous systems handle that? And before you freak out or anything, just remember, like, my great-grandmother went through World War II. We can do hard things, right? And I think preparation can be some of the best laid helpfulness. But what's happening is 9th house of enemies. And if you look at America's beginning, right? America began going into conflict against a foreign enemy that was a long distance away. So when we're in 9th house, we're talking about long travel, right? People from far away. And we were in conflict. The absolute creation of this was our country was in removing ourselves from the power of a foreign government, or at the time it was a government. But anyways, the other side of this coin is 9th house's belief systems, right? It is, and think about it from the World War II mentality, where America had this, we're all in this together. You know, obviously that is different for different populations throughout American history. But there was this common theme of America the greatest, doing things for your country. There was this camaraderie in the country. And we are the most divisive and opposing in this country than we've ever been. And I recently saw something really terrifying. It was actually, I think it was Gorbachev that talked about it originally, but Putin talked about it, saying Russia would never fall to an outside enemy. It would always fall to inner division. And I feel like in a lot of ways, America feels the same way. Which, and then the other piece of this is, of course, it's the ninth house of Supreme Court, right? And again, triggering off all these pieces is our Supreme Court currently is having two of the most divisive issues that they're going to be speaking on, or not speaking on, obviously, ruling on. And no matter which way those verdicts go, somebody's going to be really mad, even more fracturing. Add to it that, as you know, we've gone through 2 years of, I think that's one of the things I love about the Thanksgiving table or the Christmas or whatever it is where you're having people together who may have opposing beliefs, which I think if we detach from like news and media, a lot of times we can find a common ground and understand what each other's talking about and change belief points. I experienced this in my own life where my grandfather and I have extraordinarily different views on certain things. But what has happened by being in close proximity is I get the opportunity to change his mindset. And I have been successful at that because he's never been in a situation where somebody was opposing him, somebody was giving him information, all of those things. And we haven't had that. I think we don't understand how much coming together allows us to do that. And that hasn't been happening. Everybody's kind of in their closed off online world getting fed information that is polarizing. I mean, that is social media. Social media is made to be polarizing. It's what keeps you interested and mad and tuned in. So some of the big days for the Pluto return is Valentine's Day. And we also have one coming up before that, January 16th. The sun comes in conjunction with Pluto, and this should be a massive illumination and giving us clarity on exactly where the cracks are appearing. By February 14th, in and around that day, I really do expect us to have a little bit more of a clear understanding of where our Supreme Court and also Russia, what's going on. So in the chart for that, in the chart, this is the very first hit of the Pluto return. So returns like this, they most of the time take 3 hits. It's the direct hit, which is the awakening. We have the retrograde, which is realignment to the outcome that we want, or further crisis, one of the two. And then the final direct hit is like, did you learn the lesson? Is this going to work? And I will say, with America, the natal Pluto is retrograde. And one of the things with that is a deep, deep fear of being overpowered, a deep, deep fear of losing power. If you have that in your natal chart as well, that can come up. And it can help you become a better leader. It can help you come into relationship better because you understand what it feels like to be disempowered. So you give power to others. America has not, as a whole, has not been that. It has very much been, I'm going to go force my way and take power, and you're going to deal with it. And that might bite us in the butt. And that may be currently what's going to bite us in the butt. I hate talking about all the pieces. Ugh. I don't like all the moving pieces. I'm so much more interested in being a Scorpio stellium, how you work, how psychology and how our own energetics work. Like, I get people, the outside world's not my jam as much, but this feels important. So, okay. So February 14th, what we see in this chart is we have Uranus in the 9th house of Supreme Court and foreign enemies. And what happens is that Uranus is change and it's squaring off to Jupiter. So whatever change, whatever in the 7th house. So whatever action that comes in during that time, whether it's action Russia takes, an action the Supreme Court takes, anything along those lines it's going to be magnified. It's going to be bigger. And it's also something we could possibly take action against something else. So for example, this could play out like around Valentine's Day, we start putting sanctions on Russia, for example, and then there'll be an overreaction to that. Or it could be the opposite, where it is an action taken by Russia and we overreact to it, or a Supreme Court, any of those things. And excuse me. And then we move on from there. So one of the big things too is this shows up in schools. One of the big themes throughout this chart as well is moms and schools. And this is not just, so the ninth house is higher education and colleges. So high school onwards is ninth house. And that's because that's when you get into specialization. That's when you get into like, you're not getting the fundamentals of education, you're learning something a little bit higher. So middle school and below is schools. And one of the things in this as well, yeah, we also have Mars in there. So I expect the week prior to Valentine's Day to be interesting as well. And then we move on to July. And in July, the ninth house is not as activated. What's actually happening in July is muddled relations. And this is where the moms come in and the schools come in a little bit more. And again, I just don't even like, I have such a resistance to reading these charts. It's not even funny. And I frankly don't really like reading these charts, but we're kind of, when it comes back through in July and we're realigning, a lot of it is waiting on other people. And then finally, December 22nd, 2022 is our final direct hit. And that is also the very exact day that Jupiter moves into, or not exact day, it's actually, I think 2 days past, that Jupiter moves into Aries. So during this time, Jupiter is at 0 degrees Aries. And Mars is sitting in the 10th house of community, and it's ruled by Gemini, lots of communication, but it's hanging out there all by itself. So if conflict is happening, it's definitely happening by that point. Venus to Uranus. And women are wanting change. So a big part of, so the big themes I want to leave you with is outside influences, Supreme Court, and moms and children, and having more women involved in politics and making decisions is kind of like the end game of this. Like if we take not like predictive of what's happening, but what the ideal outcome is, there I get my ideal outcome, is women being more involved in making decisions. Women being more involved in how our country is going to move forwards, the decisions that we're going to make, all of the things. So I have not gotten into specifics here because I don't want to. I really don't want to. And yeah, I would love to have specific questions. But if you can tell by my voice, I'm just like everyone, I'm exhausted over the past few years. And I also I've tried to have conversations with people in my life, and because there are so many different pieces in play, there's so much tension. There's so much tension. And I'm afraid of using language. So I'll give you the example. I was talking to a family member and I used the word sovereignty, which if you're in a spiritual circle, the word sovereignty makes me think of seeding sovereignty. It makes me think of sunflowers. It makes me think of energetic sovereignty. And the word sovereignty massively triggered this person in my life, massively, and turned into a 2-hour-long conversation that took us to, there was just immediately from that point on is miscommunication and misunderstanding. And I'm literally going, sunflowers? What is wrong with this word? And it turned into something else. And that to me showed exactly, and this is somebody who loves me dearly. This is someone who knows my opinions, my thoughts, my life experiences, who deeply loves me, who in that moment completely, there was, I don't even know how to describe it. And so for me, that took everything that we're going through to a whole nother level. And I feel in it, there's so much tension, so much tension. And so if anything, I'm hoping that this Pluto return is going to break the tension, going to ease that. And yeah, just looking forward to maybe like 2026, 2027, once all the kinks are worked out, we're on blockchain, all the things. So again, I would love to have any specific questions. And just let me know. Just let me know. All right. I'm signing off now. Bye, guys.